Welcome to the Thursday edition, special edition of the Armchair Fantasy Show. Tonight we have a new guest coming on, and we're going to talk some buy lows, some sell highs, a little bit of stash or trash, and some this or that. So stay tuned.
Fantasy football, you dealing with the best. Keep it hype, authentic, just ain't nothing like the rest. With the Armchair Fantasy Show podcast, give advice for all the listeners to improve your stats. Yeah, we live on goingfor2.com. Tuesdays and Fridays, this is what you want. Talking dynasties and daily drafts, and we just getting started, that ain't even the half. Yeah, so go ahead, tell your friends to join. Going for two, cause no one remembers the extra point. Ayy, goingfor2.com, the Armchair Fantasy Show.
All right, what is going on, guys? Welcome to episode 127 of the Armchair Fantasy Show. I'm your host, of course, Jeff Lambert. You can follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. We are live every Friday night. Tonight's a special Thursday night edition, but you can always follow us on Facebook Live, Periscope, YouTube, and of course all your major podcast networks, and of course in the Going for Two app, free for iOS and Android. I'm here as always with my co-host, Mr. Ryan Searfoss. Ryan, how you doing tonight, man?
Not as good as you, man. You got the Super Bowl coming up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But other than that, pretty good starts to be from Myles Garrett this week.
Yeah.
And
we'll definitely have to get into that a little bit.
Yeah, and our Dynasty War Room has been killing it. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out. It's on Periscope. Been doing breakdowns of the players, and we have a lot more coming.
Yep, definitely, man. The War Room's been killing it for sure. We got we got like Jerry Jeudy up there. We just released, I think, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So a lot of good players there, guys. Check it out on YouTube. Just search for Armchair Fantasy Show. The War Room's 5-minute breakdowns on a lot of the college prospects coming in. So good stuff there. All right, joining us tonight is first-time guest, Mr. Dynasty analyst, Mr. Kyle White. Man, how you doing tonight, Kyle?
Doing well, man. How about you fellas?
Not too bad, man. Why don't you break down your fantasy career, so to speak, man? How long you been playing, and how many leagues you playing, and whatever else you want to talk about.
Man, I don't want to disappoint you and let you know I'm in significantly less than Mr. Searfoss there, man. Yeah, Ryan. Yeah, because Ryan's a nut with it. I'm not, man. I've been playing fantasy since 2001. I remember I was on Yahoo leagues all the way up through college before we moved to ESPN leagues, and then more recently we moved to the Sleeper app.
Nice.
But I started doing Dynasty about 4 years ago, and honestly, I can't even play redraft anymore after that.
It was fun. We started that first league together.
We did, and I think me and Ryan did. It's weird calling you Ryan, man. You've been false for like our entire relationship. But me and Foss, we started playing redraft, and we became real good friends because we value players very similarly. And he told me, I told him, I was like, man, I'm thinking about doing a dynasty. He said, man, that'd be cool. So we started this dynasty league. I think I won it 3 years in a row. So we dissolved that dynasty league, and and we started 2 more since then.
Nice.
But honestly, in the last, I want to say 8 or 9 years, the most leagues I've played in is about maybe 5. But in the last 8 or 9 years, I haven't gone a year without winning at least 1 league.
Nice.
In the last couple of years, I've only been in 2 or 3.
Nice. Good stuff. Hey Ryan, I know we haven't talked since the playoffs. You know, we did a preview show. We've talked, obviously through chats and stuff. But your Ravens obviously went out that first round, or actually second round, and laid an egg there, man. Tell me, how are you feeling that day, and how you doing now?
I had a few too many beverages that day. I was very sad. I had a bunch of people at my house, and I just wanted to go to bed in like the third quarter. It was a little rough, man. Thought about calling off work next Monday. Ended up still going.
Oh yeah, because you're in Pittsburgh too, man.
I took it hard.
Yeah,
man. I'm in Pittsburgh. It's brutal.
That's rough, man. That's rough.
My team's young. Everybody's young on there. Lamar's getting paid $1 million. They can build around him.
Yep,
cool.
Definitely. You'll be around there for a while. That's for sure. All right, let's get into some news and notes.
News and notes from around the league.
All right, Ryan, we'll go to you first on this first note that I got here. The Dolphins fully expect Ryan Fitzpatrick back for 2020. Of course, we expect them to draft a rookie. In this year's draft, possibly Tua. So there's good potential that he might sit behind Ryan Fitzpatrick. Do you think this is a good move by the Dolphins by getting Fitzpatrick in here again?
Yeah, absolutely. Tua may not even be fully ready to play off his injury come week 1, and it's good for him to sit and develop there. That team still needs a lot of work, especially to protect a young quarterback. So let Fitzpatrick go in there, help him learn the ropes a little bit. He's a vet. He's not going to really go out there and try to kill him and not help him. I think it's a good thing for him. And I'd like to see Tua sit a little bit, make sure he's 100% before you throw away your franchise QB.
Agreed 100%. And I think if you own any of the pieces there in Miami or whoever they draft in this upcoming draft, if you can get them, I think Fitzpatrick helps out guys like obviously Devontae Parker, Mike Gesicki. So their value, it will continue to be pretty decent going into 2020 with Ryan Fitzpatrick under center. Totally agree there. Kyle, I got this next note for you. I didn't know coming in that you were a Saints fan, but now I know that you're a Saints fan, so this is a great one for you. The Saints have come out and said that they want Drew Brees as their quarterback in 2020. Obviously that's kind of like saying that, the obvious there, but do you see any scenario in which Drew Brees is not there next year?
Yeah, if he's not playing at all. That's really the only way he doesn't come back. He wants to go to a year-to-year. For the last 3 years, his contracts have been these sham 2-year contracts where it'll say 2 years, $50 million or something like that. But he 1 year, $30 million with a dead cap year, and added at the end because the expectation is always for him to come back. Even last year, whenever he didn't have a contract, he wouldn't even talk to other teams because he knew he would only come back to the city. So this part for the course. I mean, Mickey Loomis wants him back, Sean Payton wants him back, and I know that there's a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths just because of the way the playoff game went.
Right.
But as I was telling you guys before the show started in December, he was on fire. He was lighting it up, and also, he was cutting into Alvin Kamara's production. But I think going forward, I mean, I think it's a good bet. He's still playing in a controlled environment. He's been playing better on the road. They're going to surround him with a lot of weapons. I wouldn't be surprised to see them go wide receiver really high in this draft. So they're going to do whatever they can do to get him to the Super Bowl.
All right. Yeah, I agree. I think he's definitely back next year, unless he decides for some reason to retire. I can't see him playing anywhere else. Especially with the weapons that he's got there. He's got that relationship with Sean Payton. So, yeah, for sure, I don't think he's going anywhere. This next subject we're going to talk about as a group here, we'll go to Ryan first. I'm just going to give out the name. I don't even got to mention any kind of note, nothing. I'm just going to say Antonio Brown. Ryan, tell me about Antonio Brown. What's going on, man?
I mean, I don't even know how to start on him. He's at a warrant out for his arrest. He's barricaded himself in his home. He threw a rocket. Their movers threw his kids' toys in the yard. He's got to go to jail or go to rehab or go somewhere. I have no idea. It's to the point it's just kind of sad.
Yeah, so Kyle, let me ask you this. Does Antonio Brown have any value whatsoever in Dynasty leagues?
Man, everyone has value, man. And again, it may not be a lot of value, but he has some value because people are going to hold on to the hope that he comes back. He played at such a high level whenever he was healthy and when he was sane, I guess, that people think that he can come back and do that. Because the fact is, even the Saints brought him back in for a tryout.
Right.
The talent's undeniable. In teams, they've been willing to put up with, people like Josh Gordon in the past or even Justin Blackmon to some degree. They keep letting people come back. And, I mean, talent wins out. That's all it is. I mean, if his legal issues clear up, even through all of this, if his legal issues clear up, he'll have probably some maybe 8-game suspension, and I'm guessing there will be a bidding war for him after he does a 1-year prove-it deal. Yeah,
I agree. I think that he has a little bit of value. I have a guy in my league that is holding on to him. And I threw out a couple of rookie picks. Man, I'll throw you a late third and see if I can get Antonio Brown just to stash him on my bench. But he's not budging on him. He's going to hold on to him and hopefully that he comes back. So, all right, let's go to the next note here. And Kyle, we'll go with you on this one. Jay Gruden. I'm here. I live here in Washington D.C., so I got some experience with Jay Gruden. But he was named the new offensive coordinator of the Jags. I think the Jags have some pretty good pieces there. They were in the championship game a couple of years ago. What do you think of this move with Jay Gruden going down there as offensive coordinator?
Man, I just wanted to know how involved he's going to be because I like it. And and again, I'm guessing everything has to come from a fantasy perspective. So the first thing I thought is, man, who's the number one receiver down there? Is it going to be DJ Chark, or are they going to try to kickstart D.D. Westbrook again? Or are they going to try to get some of these ancillary pieces like Keelan Cole back into the mix? But the first thing I thought was, I wonder if Josh Oliver is going to be the tight end next year. Because one thing that I know about Jay Gruden is he likes to use his tight end. Whenever he had Jermaine Gresham in Cincinnati, the tight end was a big deal. Whenever he had Jordan Reed healthy, Jordan Reed produced a lot. Even Vernon Davis produced at his advanced age. So I think that there's a really good news for the passing game. The only caveat is who's throwing the ball. You know, right. I mean I don't know. The money says that it's going to be Nick Foles, but the play on the field doesn't justify it. And based on everything that you're hearing and everything that you've seen, like, they can't cut the guy because it's too big of a cap hit. Yep. And you can't really play. You can't put all your faith in Gardner Minshew either, because if you watch Gardner Minshew, like he did magic, but against more difficult teams, man, he was getting you like 5 points. Yep. But if they can get competent quarterback play, and Jay Gruden's supposed to be some sort of quarterback whisperer, that's what I've heard in the past. He did, a lot with Kirk Cousins. So if he's able to get competent quarterback play, I think that you're probably going to want the pieces there. They got the talent, and I mean, he even had the season. I think that he had 2 receivers over 1,000. He had Deshaun Jackson over 1,000. He had Pierre Garçon that same season, and he had Jameson Crowder over 800 yards, with the tight ends both getting over like 500 or 600 yards. So I think that he can build a powerhouse offense there. But again, the protection is not great. The quarterback play is not great. So I'm looking at this with a little skepticism, but hopeful.
All right, Ryan. Let's go to the Bengals here, and of course we think that they're going to end up getting Joe Burrow here. But head coach Zach Taylor comes out and says that the priority this season is to re-sign AJ Green. For one, do you think Green still has value in dynasty leagues, and do you think they actually want to go out and sign this guy to a contract after he hasn't played for basically the last 2 years?
I mean, you said the reason why they want to keep him, and that's Joe Burrow. They want a guy who they know can make plays, even if he is getting older. When he's on the field, he's done nothing but produce and been one of the top receivers in the league. Yes, he has some value because if he is healthy, he's a performer. And like Cal said, everybody has value. And I think AJ Green, if he's out there, he could be a low end wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2. Then you sell him during the season, but you can buy him super cheap now. And if Joe Burrow is going there, he could be the best quarterback he's seen in a long, long time.
Good point.
And you want to surround your young quarterback with as many weapons as you can. So that's why they want to keep AJ Green. And I can't see him asking for a ton of money because of the fact, like you said, he hasn't played much in the last 2 years. So you can use that when negotiate the contract. So keeping him probably is doable.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's probably the best situation for both AJ Green and for the Bengals. I mean, I don't think he's going to cost a lot. It'll probably be a 1-year deal if they do sign him. AJ Green's not going to get a ton of money going anywhere else. He might as well just stay where he's at on a prove-it deal. Maybe he does prove it and then go somewhere else to finish his career out. But I think that AJ Green it makes a lot of sense there for the Bengals to try to re-sign AJ Green for sure. All right, let's get into some stash or trash.
Stash or trash.
All right, Kyle, we're going to start with you. Stash or trash, guys. If you haven't heard this game before, what we do is I name some guys that are fringe players, fringe dynasty players that might be sitting on the end of your bench. You probably haven't used them much in your lineups. And we determine if they're going to be a stash for next year or if it's trash and we want to just try to cut bait, either cut him outright or try to trade him for a low rookie pick. So we're going to go with you, Kyle. And once again, I didn't realize this before the show. I didn't know you were a Saints fan, but it just seemed to work out that way. So you got Mr. Traquan Smith, receiver for the Saints there. What do you think, stash or trash?
I'm saying stash, specifically until you get to the draft at least, because before I was saying that I think that the Saints will go receiver round 1, but they may also go best player available, and the best player may not be a receiver. The fact is they're losing Andrews Pete, and we got really poor interior line play towards the end of the season, specifically because of Andrews Pete. Excuse me. And if there's a guard who grades out better than a wide receiver, I can see them go in that direction. Also, I mean, a lot of the receivers that we pick up have been outside of the first round, with the exception of Robert Meacham and Brandon Cooks. So I think that they'll give him another chance to prove himself. He's been really inconsistent, and he was injured a lot of this year. But even with the injuries, he still caught 5 touchdown passes. So I think they still have a lot of faith in him. I mean, he's, 6'2". He runs really well, and he plays on the perimeter. He played well in the slot as well. So I think they're going to give him another chance, even if they do bring in a rookie. Drew Brees spreads the ball around, so I wouldn't get rid of him just yet. I'd probably wait till he has a little bit more value, and then I think you could probably get something for him instead of just put him on a waiver wire for someone else to get.
All right, yeah, good call. I actually have him on my bench currently. I actually drafted him, I think, in the 3rd round of my rookie draft, and I've been holding on to him, holding out hope. And, of course, I know you said you play on Sleeper as well as I do, and on Sleeper you can name your players. Give him nicknames. So I've named Traquan Smith Troy Questionable Smith because he was constantly out of my lineup. He couldn't even play. So hopefully this year he comes back. He's healthy, and we saw what he can do when he's on the field. I mean, he's played well in some games there. He showed some flashes. So I think he's definitely worth hanging on to. Yep. All right, Ryan, we'll stick with the wide receiver theme here and some disappointing players. This guy was going to be a breakout player this past year, but unfortunately that did not come to pass. My 49ers receiver, Mr. Dante Pettis, man. What do you think of Dante Pettis?
I think Pettis is a stash. I think we're very, very quick to turn on a young receiver. And he's heading into year 3. And he struggled this year. He battled a knee injury as well. But he did very well his rookie year. He flashed there. He showed that he could be a big play potential. Emmanuel Sanders isn't going to be there forever. You guys don't really have any receiver who's you can count on long-term other than Deebo Samuel.
Right.
I think Pettis is a guy who can excel in there. I think they just need to find the right way to fit him in. And once Sanders is gone, I think that's going to make a big thing for it.
Yeah, I think Sanders
could. They need that guy.
Right. I think Sanders is probably gone after this year.
Person to do that.
Yeah, I think Sanders is probably gone after this year. I don't think we're going to re-sign him for next year. I mean, it's possible if we get a discount there, but he might re-sign with somebody else next year, especially if we win the Super Bowl. He wants to go somewhere else and finish his career out. So I think he could be gone. I think Marquise Goodwin's probably going to be gone. We do have Jalen Hurts coming back from injury. He didn't play a single snap this year for us. But I think Pettis will be one of those guys that we're almost going to have to give a chance to this year just to see what he can do. So he's definitely a stash for me as well.
Yeah, and I'd trust him over anybody else there other than Deebo.
Yep.
Even over Kendrick Bourne? Come on, man.
Kendrick Bourne, if you know what, all he does is catch touchdowns. You know what I mean? Like I always say this about him. Chris Carter had that moniker, I just catch touchdowns, but the thing was he caught the plays, in between the 20s as well. Whereas Kendrick Bourne catches just touchdowns. If it's anywhere in between the 20s, he drops it. Every time it seems like, I think that Seattle game he dropped a pass, that first down that, cost us a game. Got the pass, I think, in the first playoff game there that almost, cost us there. So I like Kendrick Bourne, but he needs to work on his hands a little bit.
Oh, definitely.
All right, Kyle, we'll go to you for this next one. Going to the running backs now. And after the big season that Mr. Derrick Henry had, they made Dion Lewis pretty much obsolete. Do you think he's still a stash in Dynasty leagues, or do you think he's trash now?
Oh, 100% trash. Because he was obsolete even in going into last year. Like, they tried so hard to get him involved into the offense, and the reason you didn't even hear of Derrick Henry at the beginning of last year was because they were trying to incorporate Dion Lewis so much, and he didn't produce. So now, even if they do let Derrick Henry walk because he wants a lot of money, I think that they're more likely to just get a rookie to pair with Dion Lewis, and you'll never know if Dion Lewis will ever be usable.
Right.
So I wouldn't even waste the time over the bench spot.
Agreed. I think he's definitely trash. I think he's probably trash even last year. I got a friend in my league.
Yeah.
He's holding on to him and keeps thinking that something's going to happen. I'm like, dude, give up, man. Give up. It ain't going to happen. He can't recapture that magic for sure. All right, Ryan, we're going to go to this old guy, super old guy here. And assuming that he actually comes back for one more year, he once again looked good enough to be viable in fantasy, but he was surpassed by a rookie. And that's running back Frank Gore. Stash or trash on Frank Gore?
It's trash, man. Like, I hate even saying that because he's such a long time stable football. But even if he is in and he played, he was getting you 7 to 10 points if you were lucky.
Yep.
He's 35 now, 36.
Yep. He'd be 36 by the start of the season.
I don't think he's retiring until his son comes to the league. But Like, it's done, man. He isn't going to get you value. If you have to start him, you're kind of just throwing a towel at that position that you want no upside.
Yep, I agree 100%. I think he's definitely a trash. I think you can, drop him, and if for some reason you have a ton of injuries, maybe you add him back in the middle of the season because no one's going to add him to their team. He's a wasted spot. Like I said, he was passed, by Devin Singletary, who I own as well. And as frustrating as it was to watch, Devin Singletary do all the work in the middle of the field, and then they bring in Frank Gore for the goal line runs that he could never get in. It was very frustrating to watch. But yeah, I think Frank Gore, you can just basically drop him and move on for him, cut bait. All right, the next running back we got on my list here is a guy that's he's been bouncing around the league a little bit. He got some off the field troubles. He did once again got suspended, then got cut by the Miami Dolphins, but he could land somewhere else. That's running back Mark Walton. Does he have any value at all? Is he stash or trash, Kyle?
I would think he was trash. I was a big Mark Walton fan coming out of the University of Miami. I remember watching him thinking, like, man, he could be a pretty good running back. He goes to Cincinnati, gets buried on a depth chart, doesn't really do anything except get in trouble off the field. Ends up in Miami, doesn't really do anything, gets in trouble off the field. And here we are again. I'm not sure that running back is the best place or best position to get yourself in trouble at because you're so easily replaceable.
Yep.
And he has not shown enough for a team to look at him and say, well, you know what, he's worth the trouble. How much trouble are you willing to take for, a third or fourth string running back? And it's not really high. I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't even on the roster next year.
Yeah, I agree
XFL,
100%.
Him and Antonio Callaway.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, good call. Good call. All right, the next candidate we have up here for stash or trash is a guy who just can't stay healthy. When he's healthy, he's really good. He's a PPR monster, but he just can't stay on the field. Mr. Chris Thompson for the Washington Redskins, is he stash or trash, Ryan?
He's trash, man. He's getting up there in age. He hasn't played more than 8 games in God knows how long, 3 years now.
Yep.
If he's on the field, yeah, it's great, but they're trying to get younger. They have Geis there. Adrian Peterson's still there. He's obviously not younger, but I could see them drafting a pass-catching back this year in the draft because there's a ton of them. I think he's kind of done, man.
You still got Bryce Love.
Yeah, so they still got Bryce Love coming back.
I forgot about Bryce Love. He should be healthy now.
Yep.
I guess.
His name's bad.
It's a red shirt year, I guess.
Yeah, Chris Thompson's done.
All right, let's just jump right into the last two I got in here, the two quarterbacks, and let's look at this from a super flex league because these guys probably aren't going to be even owned in the one quarterback league. But Kyle, we'll go to you first here with a quarterback that got replaced this year by Mr. Ryan Tannehill, Marcus Mariota. Assuming that he ends up somewhere else besides Tennessee, does he have any value in a super flex league at all?
Definitely. We play in a 16-team league. So quarterbacks are like of the utmost value, and it's a similar thing in the Superflex. And all it takes is for someone to get injured before you have someone coming off the bench. Imagine if you asked this question about Ryan Tannehill right before the season: is he worth a roster spot?
Right.
And Marcus Mariota has that similar pedigree. He was taken number 2 overall. He does have talent. One of the biggest issues that he has is that he's always hurt.
Yep.
And then whenever he's not hurt, he's still in in front of the sticks. So maybe if he gets a new change of scenery, can build his confidence up. I don't know. I think he's definitely worth a keep.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think in Superflex league, especially if you got those large leagues like 14, 16 teams, where pretty much every single quarterback is owned, I think he's definitely viable. Because Brian Tannehill played very well, but we've seen him play poorly in the past too. So who knows? Maybe. Exactly. If he does stay with Tennessee, maybe he gets replaced by Mariota in the middle of the season. It could happen. So, yeah, I think Mariota is definitely worth the roster spot as well. All right, Ryan, we'll go to you for this last one here. Quarterback Nick Foles for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who now has a new offensive coordinator. Stash or trash?
Yeah, stash him. Kyle mentioned before how if he's starting, we've seen some success out of Jay Gruden's offense. He has decent enough speed of the weapons where he can produce that low, I guess, QB2 numbers, but it's super flex. You have to have quarterbacks in your roster.
Yep.
All starters need to be rostered. There's a very good chance he is a starter there. It may not be the most exciting play, but it can be viable.
Yep, agreed 100%. All right. Good stuff, guys. We'll take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to do some buy low and sell high, and then play a little bit of this or that. So hang tight.
In the unpredictable world of fantasy sports, when all hope seems lost and chaos and confusion rule, one hero will rise. And change everything. Going for 2.com. Because no one remembers the extra point.
Alright guys, welcome back. I'm here with Kyle and Ryan, and we're going to do some buy low and sell high. We'll start off with the buy lows, and Kyle, since you were the guest, you will go first. So give us your first buy low candidate and why you like them.
This is going to come as no surprise to Ryan, but Preston Williams.
Nice.
Preston Williams has been my guy for about a year now. Whenever I first watched him at Colorado State, I told Ryan, I was like, "Yo, this might be the best receiver in the draft, man." And then we get into it a little bit more. He runs a really slow 40 at his pro day. A lot of issues come up with his drop, he had that domestic violence issue coming out of college, so he goes undrafted. And whenever he gets to the Miami Dolphins, he's like 6th or 7th on the depth chart. But by the time the season started, he was starting over Devontae Parker, who just had a career year. And before Preston Williams went down, he was the number one target. Through 8 games, he got hurt week 9. He didn't play week 5. He had 60 targets. I extrapolated his 8 games into a 16-game season, and he would have ended up with 64 catches for 856 yards and 6 touchdowns. Nice. And among rookie receivers, that gives him that make him first in catches, 4th in yards, and then ties for 6th in touchdowns. I mean, he had a lot of drops, so that's one of the issues that he had. But the fact that Miami has a ton of areas that they need to fill, mainly on the offensive line, even on defense, they may not really go out of their way to fill their wide receiver position and give him another shot. So coming off an injury, he's really on the back of people's minds. You could probably get him for nothing. He may be on your waiver wire right now. So I think that's if you can get him for like a 3rd round pick, 4th round pick, it's definitely worth doing considering what his upside is.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think he was one of the players that, you probably almost forgot about him because he was injured for a while. People didn't really know his name even coming into the season. He wasn't, it's about midseason he kind of made a name for himself, and then, got injured, of course, and then was able to finish the year. And just because you mentioned it, I'm going to go ahead and plug my 16-game chart that I created on goingfor2.com. It's basically, it takes every single player, every single skill player, and gives them a full 16-game season based on their averages, so you can kind of see what they would have done had they played the entire season. So if you want to go see what Preston Williams did or what Melvin Gordon would have done if he played a full season, you can go to goingfor2.com and check that out. The 16-game chart is up. All right, Ryan, let's go to you. Who do you got for your first buy low? You're on mute, Ryan.
Every time after the break. We got a little more mainstream to count it on that. Right now, he's going as wide receiver 26 in Dynasty, and he finished top 20 or top 24 last year. And he's only 23 years old, which makes it crazy. It's Michael Gallup. He finished PPR 22. He had 5 games over double-digit targets, which that's with Amari Cooper there, and there's a chance that Amari Cooper might be gone after this year, which opens things up even more. And we've seen that offense start to throw more and more, and this is a kid who's still growing as a receiver, heading into that 3rd year where it's his normal breakout. So you're getting him cheap, man. He's going, like I said, at ADP at over 50. Right now he's a steal for receiver that age, and we saw this kind of range last year with Chris Godwin.
Yep.
I think this is that last buy window you have before he gets a little bit too expensive.
Agreed. I love that. That's a great call there. That's a great call for sure. All right, so my first buy low, I kind of looked at some of the guys, some of the rookies that didn't have good seasons that we kind of came in and were super excited about. So my first buy low here is Mr. Damian Harris for the Patriots. Of course, he got on the field I think a total of 5 snaps all season. But Brandon Bolden possibly is not back next year. Rex Burkhead possibly not back next year. I think only when they got signed on the contract is Michelle and James White. Michelle's nothing special as we saw this year. James White's going to do James White things. I think he's still going to be the passing down back there. But if Damian Harris gets any kind of shot whatsoever, he's free right now, literally free. I think I added him in my waiver wire in my Dynasty League because the guy dropped him. He was just sick of dealing with Patriot running backs. So Damian Harris is my buy low right now. If you can get him for almost nothing right now, especially with this rookie fever coming up here pretty soon, you could probably sell him for almost nothing. So definitely Damian Harris is my pick here. All right, let's move around and do some sells now. Let's go to you first, Kyle. Who you got for your first sell high?
My first sell high is actually Josh Jacobs. He's coming off a great season, and I think that with the injuries, he was injured in college, or he had some injuries in college, and now he's injured now. I think he broke his shoulder blade in week 7, and even though he played through it, he missed a lot of games, or he missed some time going down the stretch. It may have even cost you a game because you had to pick up Washington to fill in for him, and he did nothing for you. So I think this is probably a good time to get out. If you get you can get multiple first rounders for him. I just traded him for Patrick Mahomes and some other guys in the 14-team league. So I mean, his value is about as high as it's going to get. I think they're going to run him to the ground in Oakland. That's kind of what John Gruden does.
Yep.
So he may end up getting good 3 years out of him, but you can get out early and probably pick up a really good running back in this year's draft and in next year's draft if that's where you want to go.
Yeah, that's a good call, and people don't really think about those kind of guys being sell highs. I think you're selling a high on guys that are coming down to the end of their careers, whereas I think Josh Jacobs, his career is just starting off, but his value right now is probably as high as it'll ever be, unless he has some huge breakout season next year. But I think you're right. If you can get 2 first round picks for him, whether it be this year and 1 next year, that's an awesome value for him. So yeah, I would sell him as well. All right, Ryan, what you got for your sell high?
I'm going Chris Godwin. He is 11th overall right now in ADP, and he had in 37% of his games last year, he had under 5 receptions. He was incredibly boom or bust, and because of, I don't know, the controversy, people get tired of Mike Evans, he somehow just got inflated, and he's above Evans now. He's above a lot of guys who are a lot more consistent. He's at the top of his sell window because his ADP is absurd right now. Don't you have him at wide receiver 2 right now?
Yes, I do actually.
If you see somebody with him at wide receiver 2, sell them to him. It's getting crazy high. The wide receiver market's really good, and I'm not betting everything I have on somebody who's not a game-to-game performer. We don't even know who the quarterback's going to be there next year. I'm getting out on it.
All right.
Because this value is crazy.
Yeah, it's super high right now. It really is. And you're right. I mean, there's Mike Evans there. Who knows if Jameis Winston's even going to be back? They have a new quarterback there. Who knows what's going to happen? So, yeah, I like that call. So my next one is actually going to be a guy that probably still has at least a couple good years left of productivity, but I think right now is the time to get rid of him. I've always been of the mind in Dynasty is sell a year early instead of a year late. And I'm going to go with the tight end. I think he was tight end 3 or tight end 4 overall this year, Mr. Zach Ertz. He's getting up there a little bit in age. He's approaching that 30-year mark, which we know tight ends can still play till 34, 35 years old. But, we've already got a guy cutting into his production in Goddard. There's a few young tight ends coming up like Higbee and a few other guys that kind of had breakout seasons this year. I think Zach Ertz still has that name value, and I think he has probably at least 1 or 2 really, elite seasons left. You can probably sell him now and get some good value for him. And we know tight ends are hard to come by, but if you can get one of those cheaper, lower end, even a Hawkinson in a first for a Zach Ertz, I think you can definitely live with that. I traded him recently in my league, and I actually traded him for a first round pick for this year and a high second round pick for next year. So I'm actually happy with that trade as well. All right, we'll do a couple more buys here. Kyle, let's go to you. Who do you got for your next buy high or buy low?
Actually, next guy I had on my list was Damian Harris, but you definitely grabbed him from me, so I'll go down to the next one. And this one, it really shouldn't be that controversial, but it's Eric Ebron. And the reason is because he's free. And like what you'll notice with all my buy lows is that you're not paying anything for him, but they have really big potential. He was a bust in Detroit, but one thing that they say about tight ends is that it takes until year 3 before they really realize their potential. And whenever you got the Indianapolis, he was catching touchdowns all over the place. He was hurt this year. Jack Doyle was kind of in and out, and the quarterback play was inconsistent, and he kind of just fell off the radar, and now he's a free agent. And with him being a free agent, I think that's probably the best time to buy him because no one's thinking about him. He's not on the roster. But if he ends up in Dallas or or even
New England,
in Green Bay, I mean, my God. I mean, I think he has an extremely high ceiling, and I'd be buying him right now.
Yeah, I love that call as well. I think he is, he's a free agent, so he will be going somewhere else. I doubt the Colts sign him. He'll probably demand.
They already said they wouldn't.
They already came out and said they wouldn't sign him.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, he's definitely a free agent. He can go wherever he wants right now. So that's definitely someone you want to look at right now as your buy. All right, Ryan, what you got for your next buy low?
Rashard Penny. He's been beat up. He's been hurt. He's a former first-round pick, so he has the upside. The team wanted him there. All season this year, he was sitting on the bench. We've been waiting for him. He has he has a 74-yard game. Then he posts up with a 124-yard game to back it. Next game up, gets injured in first quarter, done for the season. And we're back to the Chris Carson show. Carson gets a little bit beat up. He had some fumbling issues. The door is still open for Penny. You can get him absolutely cheap. He's not exciting. We're out of that window, or even the people who believed in him don't. This is the perfect time to get it back. Who could end up with a starting role in an offense that loves to run, or at least a nice timeshare.
Yep, good call. I love that. I love that one. All right, so we're going to go with my last buy low here, and then we'll do one more sell high. My last buy low is Mr. Corey Davis. Of course, he was a high rookie draft pick a couple years ago. I think I drafted him in the third pick overall a couple years ago. Hasn't done much with Tennessee, and obviously A.J. Brown's now taking over that sort of lead dog role there. But I think Davis can sort of thrive in that secondary role. I think now that teams will come in next year kind of game planning for A.J. Brown to shut him down. He's still got Derrick Henry if he re-signs there, pounding the rock. So I think Davis can be that good secondary role. I don't think you got to pay anything for him really. And he probably won't be a starter for you in your lineups, but when you're going through bye weeks, you need some guy who's going to be in there playing a lot of snaps and getting some targets. I think Corey Davis is a pretty good pickup for you right now. All right, let's go back around and do one more sell high, and then we'll move on to this or that. So, Kyle, I'll give you one more of your sell lows. I'm sorry, sell highs.
All right, this is probably someone who's on everyone's sell high list, and that's Leonard Fournette. I think you're still in a place where you can probably get a low first rounder for him. I mean, if you look at his final stats, it seems like he had a really good season. But if you watch the games, he was really big play dependent. He would have like 13 carries for 12 yards and all of a sudden have a 76-yard run.
Yep.
If you can't take those out. That's part of his game. At first you don't think so because he's built as a bruiser, and that's how that's how people will market him. But I'm sorry, like if you keep doing it, I mean it's not just a one-time thing.
Right.
So but the problem is, you can't depend on those. They have a new coach. Whenever Jay Gruden comes in, I think they're going to end up passing the ball a lot more. The offensive line, I'm guessing they're probably going to look more towards a pass blocking offensive lineman. I mean, you would hope that they would look at complete offensive linemen. But I think what they're going to try to do is protect Nick Foles, get him comfortable so he can actually be a functional quarterback. And I don't know that Jay Gruden is the best person to utilize Leonard Fournette's talent. I mean, even if you look at the comments that he made about Adrian Peterson last year, and Adrian Peterson's a similar back, where they asked Jay Gruden, why aren't you using Adrian Peterson? He said, well, if I wanted to line up in an I formation every down and bang it, that's what we would do. And it doesn't sound like that's what he's going to want to do with Leonard Fournette either. So this is probably a good time to sell. Yeah,
I agree. I think, I saw a lot of Jay Gruden here in D.C. when he was the coach because I live here in D.C., and if you look through the years of his coaching career here, he didn't really use a running back like he should have. I mean, he tried to make guys sort of fit in his offense, and it never seemed to work out. I mean, he didn't really have any top-tier fancy running backs his whole career here in Washington, D.C., so I can see the same thing happen there in Jacksonville, where he's going to be a sort of a passing offense kind of guy. So I agree. I think Fournette is the guy you want to get out on right now if you can. All right, Ryan, what you got for your last sell high?
I've got somebody you kind of mentioned in your buys, and that's A.J. Brown. I love A.J. Brown. He's one of the players I really like coming out of the draft. I think he's fantastic talent, but he is wide receiver 11 now in startups. And we're talking a guy who had over 8 targets only 3 times last year, including playoffs. His 100-yard games came against subpar offenses, Houston twice, Oakland, Atlanta. So his big games came against bad teams, and we saw him against New England, Baltimore, New Orleans. We had 34 yards, 4 yards, 9 yards. When these teams are treating him as number one receiver with top corners on him,
Yep.
He didn't produce. And if we're talking a guy who you want as your top receiver, I'm not trusting him as that. And if people are giving up proven guys, even guys like OBJ, who we forgot about, yeah, I'm pulling that trigger right away. If you can get OBJ plus something for him,
Yep.
or even another low-end wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1 for him, I'm pulling that trigger. He's going above Mike Evans right now.
Poof, that's crazy. I would never do that.
That's expensive.
Yeah, that's very expensive.
His price is so high. It's a sell all day for me.
Yeah,
I love A.J. Brown, but I can't endorse that.
Yeah.
Wide receiver love is crazy.
That is crazy. That is definitely crazy. All right, so my last sell high here, and Ryan, I want to get your thoughts on this one too, and because it's from your team. Like I said, I'm usually a guy that wants to sell a year early instead of selling a year late, and that's your running back, Mr. Mark Ingram. Of course, had an awesome year this year, but he is getting up there in age. Baltimore wants to run the ball a ton. They already drafted a guy last year that may or may not, fill a role this coming up season, but I think Mark Ingram will start wearing down eventually. I think he might have one more productive year. But I think off the season that he came, this past season, you could probably get some pretty good picks for him. What do you think, Ryan? Mark Ingram as a sell?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. They like I said, they like to run the ball. He'll get carries, but I think they're going to try to keep Gus Edwards involved. They already signed him. Justice Hill started to look good down the stretch when he was getting the opportunities with Ingram out. They spent a second-round pick on him. I think that's somebody they also want to get involved. And he was he finished 13th in yards, but he's still very, very touchdown dependent for fantasy.
Yep.
Wise, you can't always count on that. And if you can get high enough draft capital, or you can get talented youth on your team, I'm definitely okay with it.
All right, good stuff. All right, let's do a little bit of this or that.
It's time for this or that.
All right, Ryan, you're kicking this one off here. I got 2 running backs here that everyone's really down on right now. One of them's a little bit older, one of them's younger. But we got running back Le'Veon Bell or Sony Michel from the Patriots. This or that. Who do you got?
It's kind of gross, but I'm still going to lean Lev Bell just for the fact he's still getting that volume, and he's going to be the back who gets the volume in those cases. I don't trust Adam Gase. I also don't trust Bill Belichick with his running backs or his game plans. But I know Gase will at least leave Lev Bell in. He got a ton of volume this year. They run him into the dirt. That's fine. Sell him during the season. Keep him now.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's Lev Bell for me as well. I actually own Lev Bell in my Dynasty League. I recently traded him away, but up until that game where he missed, where he was supposedly injured and he went bowling or whatever, but up until that game, at least in my league, I mean, he was still RB12 just based on volume alone. I mean, you wouldn't think that, but his volume basically got him to that point where he was a good enough viable option for you. Sony Michel, you might have that game where he gets 2 touchdowns, and then he comes out next game and has 2 touches. You never know what you're going to get with Sony Michel, so I think it's Lev Bell for me as well. All right, Kyle, we'll go to you in the next one here, and it's two running backs that have been really good in their careers. Both of them at one point were the number 1 overall running back. They've since fallen off due to injuries and such. But David Johnson for the Cardinals and Devonta Freeman for the Falcons. Who do you got here, this or that?
Ideally, neither. But since we have to choose, it's definitely Devonta Freeman for me. David Johnson, I wasn't in on him whenever he first came out. I thought he was too much like a wide receiver. I didn't think he could run between the tackles, and he sort of proved me wrong. And whenever I finally started coming around on him, he started getting hurt. And when he came back from his injury, he still wasn't impressive. And at first I thought it was just because of the offensive line, because the Cardinals' offensive line is terrible. But then Kenyon Drake comes in and rushes for like multiple 100-yard games and just like absolutely blows or is blowing defense out the water. I listened to an interview with Thomas Dimitrov earlier, and Atlanta is actually like one of those really trendy landing spots for one of the top running backs, and that's the reason why initially I was going against Devontae Freeman. But one thing that they had mentioned is that they generally draft running backs in the third round or later. If you look at the running backs that they've brought in recently, like Ito Smith or Quadri Olesen, even Tevin Coleman, or the Brian Hill, I believe, from Wyoming, they're all later round backs. And if that's what they're going to continue to do, to bring in later round backs, I think Devontae Freeman still has a chance to start. He was still giving you production later on in the season. He had a couple touchdowns in the playoffs, so that'll still be in people's mind. So I'd much rather have that than the nothing that David Johnson's giving you.
Yeah, it's crazy how much he's fallen down, David Johnson has, and I think you're right. I think the Kenyon Drake thing is really what sort of opened my eyes to, just how bad DJ was this year. I mean, because Kenyon Drake did those things with the same offensive line, the same offense, the same amount of carries, and Johnson couldn't do anything with that. So I think that the Drake situation definitely shines some light onto how bad he's been lately. So it's Freeman for me as well. All right, Ryan, we're going to go to two guys here that have, one of them sort of had 2 down years. I guess he had a little bit of a breakout this past year. And then, of course, David Montgomery was a down year as a rookie. But David Montgomery or Ronald Jones, who do you got out of these two?
David Montgomery. We're talking. I know Ronald Jones was my guy before, and both of you have let me hear that a lot in my life. But David Montgomery's talented back. We saw him really start to pick it up at the end of the year. One of the big things with him this year that's kind of being forgotten about, they started 9 different guys on their O-line this season.
Wow.
Who had. And that kind of rotation and not consistency is terrible for a young back to be behind. And especially you saw games where they weren't getting him any running lanes. And the volume wasn't there because they're getting behind because of that. They started to run more with the quarterback later in the season, which opened up things for Montgomery. I think if they keep doing that with Trubisky and letting him run, I think that only helps him. And some consistency at the line and with that team in general is an improvement, especially coming off a first year and him showing those glimpses of talent.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely Montgomery for me as well. I think Jones is now, he's kind of showing what he is. He is what he is, and that's basically what you're going to get from him. Montgomery, we still got a little bit of unknown. I think at one point in the season when he was getting that volume, he was leading the league in broken tackles. So he has that ability to break tackles. He just couldn't get any space to get some yards there for you. But I think Montgomery is definitely the guy that I'm going with in that scenario as well. All right, Kyle, we're going to go to you with 2 aging receivers. One is actually currently still injured. One of them came miraculously off of a major injury and had a great season. Of course, Mr. A.J. Green and going up against Mr. Manny Sanders. Who do you got out of these two?
This may be counterintuitive because I'm definitely going with the guy who's still injured. I have AJ Green. I'll try to pick him up in pretty much every league. Whenever we're doing the buy lows, he was actually the first person on my list. But whenever I saw that he was going to be in this segment, I was like, what, I might as well just take him off. Because every time AJ Green is healthy, he balls.
Yep.
And even though they're both going to be free agents after this season, I have no idea where Emmanuel Sanders is going to go. I have no idea. I don't know what he's going to get paid whenever he gets there. But I know wherever AJ Green goes, they're going to look for him to produce. I'm leaning 95%. I'm about 85% sure that AJ Green's going to end up back in Cincinnati. If you know anything about Cincinnati, the Bengals organization, they're a cheap organization, but they're homegrown. They like to keep their stars, and they haven't had a bigger star than AJ Green since like Ocho Cinco. So I think that they bring him back. I love Joe Burrow, and one thing that I heard before, there's a scout named Matt Williamson. He keeps comparing what he thinks Zach Taylor wants to do in Cincinnati to the Rams, and AJ Green would be like the high volume Robert Woods guy, and I think that he's significantly better than Robert Woods. So I think as long as he's healthy, AJ Green's my guy, because I think if he's on the field, he's going to show out.
Yep, I agree 100% with you. I'm with AJ Green as well. Much as I love Sanders, I think he came to our team and did some good things, but it's AJ Green for the upside that you're going to get from him for sure. All right, so we're going to close it out on two of these matchups that are a little bit more high upside guys that we kind of saw come on last year. And Ryan, we'll go to you first with 2 second-year receivers going into 2020. I guess the rookies considered still now, but they will be second year by the time we get to 2020. Terry McLaurin and Mr. Deebo Samuels. Out of these two, Ryan, who you got?
I had a hard time with this one. I literally, till about 2 minutes ago, was leaning towards McLaurin. But we're talking about turnover in San Fran's offense, and he's probably going to be the inconsistent part back.
Yep.
I see that leading his way towards volume. They move him around. They get him the ball. They make a concerted effort to get him the ball. Terry McLaurin's done great, but he's still more of a big play dependent guy. When you have somebody like Debo, who you could see making that DJ Moore type volume play, even in a run heavy offense, I think he's their guy now, other than Kittle, and number 2 target in that offense.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's Debo for me just because of it's going to be the same thing for him this year. You know what I mean? It's going to be the same offense, same head coach, same coordinator, same sort of scheme. So we're going to kind of expect him to take a second step there and be good. Whereas with McLaurin, it's like you're going to have Haskins there. You're going to have a new coaching staff. You're going to have a new offense. You're going to have everything's going to be new. And how does he fit into this offense is going to be sort of a question mark. So I think it's Debo just based on the fact that it's going to be very similar to what he's doing this year already. So give me Samuels as well. All right, Kyle, you're going to close us out here. Another tough one that I kind of came up with here. Mr. Darius Slayton, who I love. And McCole Hardman, who could, people are like, oh, he's just a return guy. But McCole Hardman could be the number 2 next year with Watkins, being owed so much money. So you could have a number 2 receiver there that can't see the offense. You definitely want that. But who do you like, Slayton or Hardman?
Man, this really comes down to my personal preference because I really prefer Slayton over Hardman because I was trying to talk myself into Hardman. I was thinking, maybe they cut Sammy Watkins and eat the $7 million in dead money. Demarcus Robinson's gone, but you still have Travis Kelce there who eats up a lot of targets, and you still have Tyreek Hill there who's also going to eat up a lot of targets. But then I'm going back but he's playing with Mahomes. Mahomes is going to give him the ball, but I'm not sure if I don't know, man. I just couldn't get away from Darius Slayton because logic tells me that Darius Slayton's the worst bet. He has worse draft capital. So you would think that he's more easily replaceable just off the fact that he's not going to cost a whole lot. But he's behind Sterling Shepard, who's been hurt a lot recently. Golden Tate, who's, I think he's my age. Not that I'm that old, but in football years, I'm ancient, And then, but my biggest issue with Darius Slayton was how does his team see him? Because whenever Evan Ingram's healthy, whenever Sterling Shepard came back, Darius Slayton really took a step back. That last game, I believe in week 17, I don't think he did anything. Did he even catch a pass?
No.
But I think that if you look at their offense in its totality, or specifically the receiver position, he's probably the only guy who can really line up on the outside and play effectively. Golden Tate, he's been in the slot ever since he got to Detroit, and he's really thrived there. And even with Sterling Shepard, he doesn't win on the outside as well as Slayton appeared to. And apparently Slayton and Daniel Jones have something going on because they had a really good connection. Even whenever Daniel Jones went out and Eli Manning came in, Darius Slayton was still balling. So I'll take Darius Slayton just because of the upside. And I think he can be the number 1 where I think McCole Hardman will never be better than the third option.
Yeah, I agree. I think for those exact reasons, I think Slayton's got the chance to be the number 1. Him and Jones had a great connection. Even in training camp, because I'm a degenerate and I play daily fantasy in the preseason. If you can believe that, it's very hard to play preseason. But Daniel Jones and Slayton was a great connection. It's tough to play, man, but it's fun once you get into it. You're like looking at scouting reports and those kind of things. It's definitely fun. So Slayton was my dude. So I think I drafted him in my rookie draft. I like Slayton. I think Hardman can be the number 2 in Kansas City as a receiver. But like you said, he's probably the number 3 in the pecking order there with Kelce and with Tyreek Hill. So agreed 100%. All right, guys, it's time for the Forgotten Player.
Get ready for GoingFor2.com's Forgotten Fantasy Player of the Week.
All right, Kyle. So you've been playing since 2001, so you have a high bar here. I want you to give me a good Forgotten Fantasy Player. We haven't had one in a while. Tell me who you got.
Here's the thing, right? It really came down to 2 players. I mean, you mind if I give you 2? Can I give you 2?
Go ahead, give us 2. That'll work.
All right. So 2012, Denario Alexander. I don't know if you guys remember that name. He played for the Rams, man. We thought he was gonna be the next big thing. One of the issues with him is he kept on getting injured. But if you picked him up, he had a 5-week stretch between weeks 9 and 13 that probably helped you get to the playoffs because he had in 5 weeks he had 30 catches, 500 yards, and 5 touchdowns.
Nice.
Did he do anything in the playoffs? No, but I didn't start him in the playoffs, so it was good. But the bigger MVP, and I think me and Ryan might have actually been playing fantasy together at this point. This is 2013, and that's Zach Stacy.
Nice.
Zach Stacy was my guy. I remember following him all through the off season. I can't remember who the starter was supposed to be that year, but I knew I didn't like him, and I was like, and I kept on hearing this kid from Vanderbilt. And I'm like, I kind of like him, you know. And then there was some prognosticator, it might have been like Daniel Jeremiah or something. He was like, yeah, you know, and Zach Stacy, he's third on the. I think it was behind Benny Cunningham.
Yep.
So I picked him up, and he sat on my bench for weeks. And then I'm not sure if it was just like the starter was just ineffective or Steven Jackson went out or something like that. But ultimately, for the next 8 weeks, this guy gave you either 100 yards rushing or a touchdown or both. And then in the playoff weeks, the first is in week 14, 25 yards, 1 touchdown. Week 15, 133 yards, 1 touchdown. And then in the championship, 104 yards and 1 touchdown. Like, as a third back, or who's probably your flex, because, you know, I didn't draft the guy. That's unmatched production. I mean, he helped me win the championship that year for sure.
Yeah, it's funny you say Zach Stacy. So we have a fan that's he's always on Facebook and watches the show pretty much every time, and his name is AJ Smithington. He actually came on the show at one point, and whenever we do this segment, he always puts in the chat room the Zach Stacy Award. That's what he calls it. He calls it the Zach Stacy Award. But no one's ever picked him yet, so I just kind of left him hanging out there, and you finally picked up Zach Stacy. So AJ, if you're out there, man, he finally got called out. So good stuff, man. I love that. I love that pull for sure.
I was so mad whenever they picked up Trey Carson, and then they kept on finding. They replaced him. Then they replaced Trey Carson like the year later. I'm just like, I guess that's his career. But he was a good one.
He was, but definitely was. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, Ryan, give us where we can follow you at. I know you're doing a few things over with another website there. Give us an idea of what you're working on right now.
Find me on Twitter, Ryan Surfoss, Fancy FB Connect. Find me here on whatever days of the week we're going to be on coming up. We're kind of all over the place. We have some great guests coming on. Find me at the War Room, which we're going to have some more videos coming out. I think we have a few from the originals that we're going to record again. Find me at the Dynasty Draft Room covering the SEC. And we're going to be doing a draft guide there, which is going to have over 120 players. It's awesome looking. So, yeah.
All right, good stuff.
Busy.
Good stuff. All right, guys, that's a wrap. For Kyle, for Ryan, I'm Jeff, and we'll see you next time.